New research has come to light that shows that the gender pay gap between women and men actually starts at the beginning of employment, with female graduates paid consistently less than their male graduates. Executive mentor and coach Amanda Blesing joins us now for more on what needs to change. How are you today? Good to see you.
Fantastic to be here. Hi.
So this is a really important topic, obviously, and I think we like to think we're getting a little bit closer. But firstly, why does this happen at the commencement of employment? And why do you think employers feel there is a need to pay men and women differently?
It's a really interesting problem, isn't it? You know, we've been aware of the gender salary gap for years, and it's not like people set out to try and pay young men more than young women. It's not like, I think we imagine, you know, we don't sit at home and think, yeah, I'm going to give the blokes more. But this gender salary gap at this graduate level keeps creeping back in, and recent research was saying, you know, there was one category where they were being paid $10,000 more, another category $4,700 more. Like, these are big gaps, right? At the get-go. And this is bias. This is just our socialized stereotypes kicking in, and we're not even aware of it. And managers are making decisions to pay the men more, perhaps because they come across more confidently, or perhaps because they're assuming that they might be more career-minded, or perhaps because men have been in those sorts of roles before, and that's the norm. So yes, it's creeping in, and yes, we need to do something about it.
So do you think we will ever see women consistently paid the same as men who perform the same job? I mean, is it getting better, worse? What are you seeing with this picture?
Well, gender salary gap overall, is decreasing minuscule year on year. But basically, for very many years, it's been hovering around 14, 16%. That's still considerable. But we're talking right now, this graduate salary gap at the very beginning of your career. And you can imagine the impact that has over the course of your career. You're earning $5,000 a year less when you first start. So let's say that goes to $10,000 a year less, in the second year, etc. It has an escalating compound effect for women. And this is leading to women over the course of a career to be paid significantly less amounts of money. And the superannuation salary gap, or the superannuation gender gap there, is really quite large. So this is a significant problem we do need to sort out for industry and for community as well.
So in your work in mentoring female executives, does the pay gap come up in conversation with these people that you're working with?
I have to say, it does come up, but usually only when a woman has found out by accident that she is being paid less than her male peers. Right. Now, remember, that's legal, but sometimes it can happen unless organisations have mechanisms, audits and regular check-ins in place. So I was recently talking with a woman, of course she was fuming. She's currently being groomed for the CEO role. So she's the natural successor for CEO. She's been identified as that. She's been told she's been groomed and educated to be the next CEO. And she found out by accident that she was being paid $250,000 less than her male peer, who is not being groomed to be the CEO. So you can imagine the conversations I'm having with women around that sort of money. They're very angry, disillusioned, and really wanting to pick up their bat and ball and go elsewhere. And that's the risk for organisations. Women will move if they're not being paid equally, or they find out that they've been underpaid.
So when you do speak to these people, what sort of advice do you give them, and what would you give to young women in particular who feel like they're being underpaid, and then how should they approach that topic with their boss?
Yeah, great topic, because I don't think anyone's that confident talking about money, whether you're a man or a woman. It's not like we go, can't wait to go and ask the boss for a pay rise. But women, even less so, because the social stereotype norm is that we don't talk much about women. This is not about women not asking frequently enough, because they haven't even had a chance. They're a graduate. But if you are in a role, women need to get comfortable talking about money. Managers in particular need to be raising it regularly and making sure that women don't get caught by their own socialisation. But individuals, women, need to get comfortable talking about money. And what's really interesting is that we imagine that a pay rise or a promotion happens at a meeting that we have, say, in 6 months' time. It's like that's the that's the salary conversation I'm going to have in 6 months' time. But it's the work that we need to be doing leading up to that moment. We need to be collecting evidence. We need to be benchmarking. The burden of overproof still resides with women, so let's do the work. So we need to be collecting evidence of wins and achievements, quantifying the value we're adding back to the business, and we need to be benchmarking so that we can have educated conversations and say, well, in actual fact, I have found out that, the 3 people in my team are being paid more than me, but we're all doing the same job. We need to have a conversation about that.
Yeah,
I did hear one really,
Sorry,
if you've got time for one more story. So I did hear a really interesting story about a gender equity agency. It was a gender salary equity agency in another country where a woman found out, she was just started from university and she was appointed with 3 colleagues. There were 2 other women and 1 man. And they started out and they didn't think to question what salary they were on. After all, they were with the Gender Salary Equity Commission in their country. And then after 3 months, they were comparing notes over lunch and they found out that the man was being paid considerably more than the 3 women. So it's a good story to illustrate that this is hard. This is, we as organisations need to get better at checking in, being transparent about the numbers and having checks and balances in place. So this can't happen and men and women are remunerated equally.
No, I completely agree. And yeah, it is hard. So therefore we should talk about it more, like what you're doing, which is great. Thanks so much for your time. Where can we head to touch base if we want to see what you're doing with your work? You're an author, you're a coach and all this sort of stuff. Where's the best place to go?
Yeah, thanks, Adrian. Look, I am found easily on www.amandablesing.com. That's a blessing with 1 S, a blessing in disguise. Or head on over to LinkedIn. Look, I do a lot of work on LinkedIn, have a lot of fun on LinkedIn. Connect with me there. So Amanda Blesing on LinkedIn.
Really enjoyed the chat, Amanda. We'll talk again soon.
Thank you. Great to be here.